you very much, Madam Facilitator. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Okay, how are you this morning? Okay, I am also well. Yes, as introduced, my name is Theopoline Amushenje. I work for the University of Namibia, and I'm also the coordinator for the Fanarapan node, so I'm representing the Namibia Fanarapan node. I have a simple task this morning to give you a recap of day 2, which was the 5th of August, 2025. Now, the day started with a recap of day 1 at exactly 8:40, and at 9 o'clock we were done, and we moved to Plenary 3, which was on seed regulatory systems in Africa. And Dr. Tulasizwe Kambela delivered the keynote address during the plenary session, which explored the theme, Unlocking Seed Systems for All, Advancing Inclusive and Sustainable Seed Policy Reform in South Africa. He emphasized that despite the country's democratic progress and scientific capacity, inequality persists, particularly in access to seeds and participation in the seed sector. What were the key challenges highlighted? One of them was dual seed system, that South Africa has a formal industrialized sector dominated by multinational companies and a marginalized informal sector. Also, inclusion gap, so that smallholder farmers face regulatory and financial barriers to accessing quality seed or participating in seed production. And also sovereignty risks, heavy reliance on foreign-owned seed companies, and this threatens food and national sovereignty. Another one is policy misalignment, that existing laws and trade agreements often favor commercial interests over farmer rights and transformation. And the last one was local innovation exists. So some provinces like Limpopo are showing promise with decentralized inclusive seed policy initiatives. What were the recommendations? So the recommendations proposed were reform seed laws to promote equity and farmer ownership, support smallholder seed enterprises, decentralize governance and align research with farmer needs, as well as reduce reliance on foreign seed sources. And then there was panelists. Their contributions were also noted. We had Mr. Cobus van Huisten from Sanso. He shared community seed initiative experiences from the early 2000s and suggested these models could be replicated nationally. Also, Mr. Gsempo Patron Kumaro, he pointed out the lack of smallholder participation in seed certification. He called for more inclusive systems, localized research, and support for varieties that serve informal markets. And it was also good to see that there was also a farmer among us. He's a commercial farmer. Hopefully in the future, we'll also invite smallholder farmers. So Mr. Gift Mafuleka is a commercial farmer. He highlighted the resilience of indigenous seed systems and advocated for greater farmer autonomy and value chain protection, especially for staple crops like white maize. Then we moved on to Plenary 4, from evidence to influence, advancing nutrition advocacy for policy reform. You would all agree with me that the facilitator of this program, Professor Trami Gwenya, started the session in style. In style, I just remember that red cap she was wearing as well, teaching us a Fanarapan song. And she also taught us a slogan, which goes, Africa, Activate. Yes, you are good students. Thank you. Yes. So this session adopted a creative approach to communicating nutritional challenges, featuring a performance by the Activate Africa community. Through drama and storytelling, the performance addressed societal norms and family dynamics impacting infant and child nutrition. We were also advised not to just remember the characters in the drama, but to remember the message. So what were the key messages from the performance? Number one, exclusive breastfeeding is essential for the first 6 months of life. And also complementary feeding. This should begin at 6 months, utilizing affordable local foods such as beans, bananas, and fortified cereals. And also families should avoid processed foods and premature introduction of solids. And also both mothers and fathers should be involved in health and nutrition education. Not only mothers, but also fathers. This was emphasized. And nutrition is a shared responsibility, not just the domain of women, as I just said. And also community leadership and local health workers are vital to promoting evidence-based practices. The session successfully challenged traditional gender roles and stimulated dialogue on male involvement in parenting and nutrition. And audience participation was strong, and the session closed with gratitude for community actors advancing child health and well-being. Then we moved on to Plenary 5, titled Empowering the Next Generation, Policy Pathways for Youth in Agri-Food Systems. This session centered on the role of young people in driving transformation across agriculture and food systems. While youth are often regarded as innovators and early adopters, they remain underrepresented in policy development and decision-making spaces. So the key challenges highlighted were as follows. Policy language is often complex and inaccessible, limited access to policy-making spaces, perception that these spaces are only for privileged or older people. Also, lack of access to technology and infrastructure in rural areas limits youth participation, and fragmentation among stakeholders reduces effectiveness in nutrition and agricultural sectors. Recommendations which were proposed are as follows. Simplify policy communication to be youth-friendly, and also provide technology access and digital platforms for youth engagement. Integrate nutrition education into school curriculum to raise awareness and create demand for healthy foods. Governments should actively involve youth in policy design and support youth-led innovations, and encourage cross-sector collaboration to break silos and better support food system transformation. Then we had parallel sessions. Parallel session one, the title was From Science Policy to Practice, SACNASP's role in advancing transformative food system in Africa. And so the presenter was SACNASP. So this session underscored the need for professionalization, ethics, and mentorship in Africa's agri-food sector. Institutions including SACNASP, GDARD, ARC, TUT or TUT emphasize aligning academic training with industry needs. And the key challenges highlighted were weak regulatory standards and accountability mechanisms, skills mismatch among agriculture graduates, poor links between academia, government, and private sector, barrier to market access and technology for small-scale players, low youth interest due to outdated training models, and under-resourced agricultural training institutions. The recommendations were, which were proposed were, or they are, establish formal mentorship programs to connect professionals with youth, promote inclusive agri-policy training and leadership development, host career building forums such as networking events and policy labs, strengthen support for women and youth innovations, invest in institutional infrastructure and curriculum reform to reflect industry realities. Then there was parallel session number 2. The title was Enhancing Youth Participation and Influence in Regional Food Systems Policy Processes in ESA. The presenter was Tebi Mwamakamba from Fanarapan, and this session focused on the Fanarapan Agri-Youth Policy Fellowship, which aims to equip young people with skills, mentorship, and opportunities to influence agriculture and food systems policy. So the fellowship connects youth with experienced professionals, offers policy training, and supports youth-led innovations. In this session, which I also attended, there was what was referred to as speed mentorship, and this was compared to actually like speed dating. So potential mentors spoke to potential mentees for about 5 minutes, rotating, so that mentees could receive mentors based on their connection. If you connected, then you can then get a mentor. This was then referred to as a marriage, and interestingly, one was actually allowed to marry more than one. So in other words, you could mentor more than one mentee. So key challenges highlighted: youth are excluded from critical decision-making processes. Mentorship and business support are sporadic and unsystematic. Young agripreneurs face rigid regulations and limited market access. And that women and rural youth often lack access to structured platforms. Recommendations are proposed is to institutionalize mentorship relationships between seasoned professionals and youth, support structured fellowship business incubation and policy internships, and also foster knowledge transfer and innovation through youth-led projects, and also promote gender-sensitive policies that enable full participation in agri-food systems. Parallel session 3, titled Mapping the Pathways, Identifying what is necessary and what might stand in the way of desired changes. The presenter was Foster Health, and participants organized into 4 discussion groups based on RTP themes, began by viewing and refining their list of change drivers. The key challenges highlighted as follows: mindset barriers, resistance to change among farmers, and insufficient training, and also inconsistent policies, so lack of alignment with transformation goals, and also infrastructure constraints, poor access to ICT, transportation, and storage. Also market barriers, so limited pathway for women and youth to access formal markets, and climate vulnerability, poor preparedness for shocks and disasters. The recommendations proposed are as follows: launch campaigns for nutrition awareness and behavioral change, promote coherent policies that reflect the realities of smallholder farmers, invest in rural infrastructure and logistics, facilitate inclusive value chains that connect marginalized groups, and mainstream One Health principles in food system planning. So closing reflections. That day 2 features dynamic and insightful sessions that deepen dialogue on transforming Africa's agri-food systems. So discussions spotlighted seed policy reform, nutrition advocacy, and youth engagement as key pillars of resilient and inclusive food systems. And that participants emphasized the need for locally driven solutions, inclusive governance, and stronger support for smallholder farmers and youth innovators. The importance of mentorship, capacity building, and community leadership emerge as critical enablers of sustainable change. And finally, as we move forward, the momentum from day 2 provides a solid platform to drive policy action and measurable impact across the region. I thank you.
Can we give her another round of applause? Thank you, Prof. Theopoline, for such a detailed recap of day 2. We are now going to be moving ahead to plenary number 6 under the theme Financing the Future, Aligning Investment with Agri-Food Systems Transformation Goals. I would like to call to the fourth, the facilitator of this session, Mr. Chola Mfula. Do we have Mr. Chola Mfula in the room? Okay, in the meantime, I would also like to call the panelists of this session. Starting with Ms. Komape, you may kindly make your way to the fourth. And we also have Dr. Lewis Hove, Ms. Leona Achari, and Professor Zelia Menete. So all the panelists, I am kindly requesting you to come to the fourth. May we kindly give them a round of applause as they make their way. In the meantime, I will be letting you know where these panelists and the facilitator are from, the organizations that they are from. Mr. Chola Mfula, our facilitator of this session, is from Order NEPAD, and we have the panelists starting with Ms. Komape. She is from the Department of Agriculture here in South Africa. We have Dr. Lewis Hove from FAO, and we also have Ms. Leona Achari from the Agriculture Development Agency, also known as AGDA. We also have Prof. Zelia Menete from CADESA. Thank you.
Good morning. How are you today? Thank you. I think we need some energy in the room. Whenever we're talking about money, I always get excited. Sometimes whether it's a lack of it, which we have suffered from in agriculture, but more importantly now, I think it's a question of saying, how do we get more of it within the sector? So I'll begin by introducing myself. My name is Chola Mfula. I head the program on agribusiness and investment at the African Union Development Agency. So AUD and NEPAD. So AUD and NEPAD is a technical arm of the African Union, and we do most of the program implementation, while the Commission does a lot of the political statements. I think just to put some of what we're going to discuss in context, I think some of you may be aware that in January this year, we launched the third version, if I can call it that, of the CADAP program. So this one is called CADAP Kampala. We are using this year as a readiness year for full implementation starting from 2026. Within that declaration, there are 7 commitments. I will talk mostly about commitment 1 and commitment 2, because the discussions that we're going to have next are related particularly to those. So commitment 1 really commits countries to intensifying sustainable food production, agro-industrialization, and trade. And commitment 2 is really about boosting investments, financing for accelerated agri-food systems transformation. Now, commitment 2, which is really what we'll be talking about this morning, has got a number of key components within there. The first thing that pops to mind now under commitment 2 is that African countries have committed to raising $100 billion for agri-food systems transformation over the next 10 years. Now, this $100 billion is going to come from both the public sector as well as the private sector. So the mechanism must be there for this to happen. Private sector have got their own case, which is commercially oriented. Public sector have got their own case, which is a development case. But somewhere there must be a point of intersection. So some of the things that we're going to discuss today will be very important in terms of how we shape the interventions for KADAP Kampala going forward. And that is particularly important to myself, simply because within my program, Commitment 1 and Commitment 2 are directly under my responsibility. Some of the key things within those 2 commitments, and I know that we shall talk about the 10% that was committed over the last 20 years from KADAP Maputo to KADAP Malabo, and that has continued with KADAP Kampala. However, we really want to change the narrative a little bit to get to a point where we are looking at improving the quality of these particular investments. So 10% does not just become a mark that you hit, but it's also about what kind of investment areas are you putting in. Because it could be something that does not really generate a return from both the business or the development case. But it must be able to look at it in terms of the quality of the investments that are going to be there. So things like public-private partnerships become very important, and how effective they shall be over the next 10 years. We need to look at the strategies for enhancing the policy environment, because the political capital in this development space is extremely important. Not so long ago, I was in Zambia, and we're talking about prioritization of value chains. And we came up with all these models for doing that. And there were colleagues from Uganda. And then as we're ending that, they said, no, this is not what we call priorities. It's something else, because the political statement has come in. So clearly, the political capital is extremely important. And as we move from agriculture to an agri-food system space, it's also very important that we look at the mechanisms and the institutional capacities and capabilities of implementing a food systems approach over the next 10 years. So we'll definitely be pushing governments for more investments from the public sector in areas such as research, innovations, technology, energy, which is a very, very big and important component if agro-industrialization is going to happen, water management, irrigation, and other infrastructure, which is particularly important if we're looking at developing the productive assets for private sector to sort of come on board. So things like irrigation, storage, marketing, those will be very important. I think the de-risking mechanisms also become very important in terms of how this is going to be done, using instruments that have been provided by central banks, as well as how we're going to structure the public and private instruments for crucial and critical infrastructure, not only within countries, but along food corridors, as we have noticed that there's quite a lot of trade that's going on, even if it's below 20%, but countries are really trading among themselves. So these are some of the things that we want to dive into. And I always say that we've been quite nice to some of the problems that we have in Africa. So even as we get into this discussion, maybe it's important that we become a little bit dirty around this. It's not time to just describe the problems, we know them, but I think the solutions is what we're looking for. And if those solutions require us to be agitated in order to get there, I think let's have that. So let me now call upon the panelists for this particular session. I think they were called earlier on, and I'd like to call them back here so that then we can now start framing this. The keynote speech, I've just given that introduction so that people understand where this discussion is going to go. But we're looking at having a keynote speech given by Mr. Ishmael Sunga, the CEO of Sakao. Is he here? Thank you, sir. Please, I think you can come and take your seat. As for the discussants and on the panel, can we kindly welcome That's fine. Sorry, we've just gotten a message that some of the participants, in terms of the panelists, are not yet here. So what we'll then do is change the program a little bit, and maybe after we give the keynote speech from Mr. Sunga, because these issues are so broad-based, we'll probably then look at it in terms of having a more plenary type session so that then we can start asking those and interrogating those questions. I am here representing African Union, and there are other colleagues here who also have the similar kind of expertise. So for now, let me give it to Mr. Ishmael Sunga. A big round of applause for you, sir, as you give the keynote speech.
Good morning, everyone. I assume that seeing the panelists are not here, I'll take their time. So it may be more than 15 minutes, hopefully. I'm pleased to speak to you. In fact, it's a fairly rare occasion that you find farmers speaking to esteemed delegates like you. I'll try to give it my best so that what I speak about is going to resonate with yourselves. Quite often, I find that some of our thoughts coming from the producer side don't exactly tally with the thoughts that everyone else, normal people, have. So, but let's have a conversation. It's an interesting topic of financing the future. And I'm also saying financing farmers, so that we have financing, then we have the future, then we have farmers. Then it's a nice round of FFF. That's my own invention, but I think it's exciting in many ways. Part of it is, how do you define the future? And whose eyes is the future drawn? Because we can have all different versions of the future. So it's fundamentally important to understand what future, whose future we're talking about. And the future maybe sometimes is like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. And the beholder today at this stage is a farmer's representative. So I'll try to articulate what I think the future should look like or might look like in as simple ways as I can. But the point is, it's about transformation. Really, I think that is the key word. It's about transformation. And transformation from a farmer's or producer perspective, I would want to believe, is different from other value chain actors, because producers, they've got peculiar issues that they deal with, fundamental issues that they deal with. So when they talk of transformation, I think it is much more with a lot of intensity and a lot of passion relative to, I would want to believe, what the other value chain actors would. Transformation really is contextualized in the sense of, imagine that those that produce food for everyone are themselves hungry and are also themselves malnourished, themselves stunted. The very same people who are anchoring value chains, who put food on the table of others, find themselves hungry. So I think in terms of transformation, I think it speaks volumes about what needs to be done to avoid a situation where we have this strange, if that's the right word, situation. Also, we have players who are in one of the biggest business by volume of globally. It's one of the biggest industries, and they anchor it, and yet they are the poorest in that sort of big industry. So I'm just trying to illustrate here the kind of dichotomy or paradox that we see that needs to be part of the transformation that we want. We also see that they reside in far-flung areas in the hinterland where there's no semblance of backbone infrastructure, where there are no roads, there are no bridges, no water reticulation, no social services, and we expect them to innovate and to be productive. And they're disconnected. There's no hospitals, you name it. It's no longer about agriculture, it's about something that guarantees you decent life or decent life, dignified life. So these are the kind of people we're talking about. If you imagine what transformation looks like, sometimes it is about the ABCs of life. It is not about some of the things that we normally speak about. I'm not saying that all farmers are the same, but typically speaking, the majority of them are in that sphere. If you look at how the value chains are configured, it's also about issues of equity and fairness. They hold the highest risk, and they shoulder the lowest return. And as you go up the chain, those get better return and lower risk profile. So it talks of issues of equity and fairness in the distribution of reward and risk. Again, that's part of what I'm going to be talking about, transformation. You also look at the sector whereby the human capital stock, if one is to be polite about it, is tired. One could say that the sell-by date is finished. We really need a new generation to really take us to the future that we want. I'll paint that future a little bit in a moment, but the point being that we don't have the kind of capital stock that is going to take us to where we want to go. Not only as farmers, but as all systems that is around food or agri-food. It's important because farming as I see it in the future, and even now, maybe the future is now, has become very complex. It is also has become very dynamic. It has become very knowledge intensive. It has become very information intensive. It is science driven. It is data driven. It is ICT enabled. If you try to look at the kind of farmer we have now and put them in that situation of science, data, ICT, you find that it's no longer fit for purpose. So there's going to be fundamental change about, it's not about servicing the engine. It's not about, it is about removing the engine and putting a new one, not massaging the one that is there. That if we have to talk about the truth about the future here. And farming is now more in the head than it is in the hands. So you really need a different aptitude. I would imagine the next generation of farmers are going to be with tertiary education. Maybe they are going to have degrees, even a smallholder farmer. That's where we are going. So we're not talking about investing in the future or financing that future. That is implied in part of what I'm saying. And fundamentally also, I've been told that let's not talk about the problems. But I think it's important to give just a small perspective about the problems. Farmers buy retail, and they sell wholesale in general. So, and then they will never win when you buy retail and say, it is because of the fundamental problem of fragmentation and isolation in all its forms, geographic, economic, political, social, spatial, you name it. So until we fix issues of fragmentation And then now, thank God we have digital technology that can actually allow you to virtually aggregate for economic power, for negotiations, and the rest of the stuff. Now, given what I've just said, I mean, the last one, which I think is going to resonate with you, perhaps, is the misalignment of research and innovation with farmers' pain points. I know a lot of you are going to argue with me about that, but from where we stand, we don't think that research is correctly dovetailed into the issues and pain points of farmers. A lot of the pain points and issues that farmers face are not technological, they're not technical. I'm not saying technological research is not good, no. I am saying if you take what is happening now and try to overlap it with the challenges and issues that farmers are facing in their basic nature, you'll find that there's a misalignment there. A lot of it is actually more policy related, more socio-economic related, and you look at the research and innovation, it's much more on the other side. I think we need to call for a balance of research and innovation that talks about how do we increase, as an example, invest in backbone infrastructure at scale. How do we deal with imbalances in power imbalances in value chains? It's a research area for me. How do you make sure that farmers have better negotiations, better terms? That kind of research, it might not be terribly exciting for researchers because it is not groundbreaking. But guess what? It is going to make the lives of many people change, and change at scale and enormously. So let's have a conversation about where does research that speaks to the pain points of farmers, that is defined by them, not that is defined by others, is actually, or maybe co-created, is actually put on the table. It's part of what is the financing of the future. And I'm defining financing here in all its multifaceted forms. I'm talking about financing in the same manner as funding, if the difference is there. I'm talking about philanthropy, I'm talking about blended, I'm talking about commercial, I'm talking about all manner, because it has also to speak to some of the challenges that require...
But I just want you to comply before I can send a team to come and take you out of that place.
Is that me? What have I done? I'll be taken out of this place now. Are they talking to me? No. Oh, thank God. I was almost dodging bullets here. Okay. No, I was saying that all sources or all types of funding and financing is important because we're talking about heavy lifting stuff here.
At some point, if it's becoming complicated.
It's online. Yeah, it's heavy lifting stuff, so it requires partnerships, it requires complementarity of effort to do the heavy lifting that is required. So it is also investing in hard issues, bridges and roads, and all. It is also investing in soft issues about institutions, about governance, about equity, about many things. So you really need different financing instruments. And this is about even investing in farmers' institutions, because I come from a farmers' institution myself. And what I'm talking about actually is also an indictment on us. Perhaps we need a new generation of farmers' organizations that actually is now fit for purpose. So we also need to be frank and fair amongst ourselves. Just to highlight different issues here, I think it's so fundamental to invest in a new generation of farmers. I think that is a given. In any case, we have no choice. But for it to happen as quickly and at scale as possible, we just have to have an agriculture that delivers, that delivers well, not economically, by the way, but financially, because many people don't speak economics, they speak finance, they speak money. Yeah. So sometimes we measure things in terms of economic viability and say it's great. But as long as it is not bringing money in the pocket of farmers, it perhaps is not as great as we want it to be. So it has to be that kind of agriculture that is in the SME range, that can speak to a number of young agripreneurs who are driven and motivated by the lure of profits. Might be a swear word, but that's reality. But motivated by that. The other outcomes we're talking about will be the core benefits. Sometimes, again, in the conversations, we tend to take the core benefit as the action. And sometimes also. So for us, environmental outcomes, climatic outcomes, are actually the core benefit of that which we need to do and are nudged to do. And we are nudged to do a lot of these things by stakeholders and by value chains. And unfortunately, when things go south, the problem is always with the farmer and everyone else, as if they were innocent in the configuration. We're producing because of you guys, and we all need to do time. It cannot be that the farmers alone do time, and yet you are saying produce, 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 and in that production, there are going to be externalities, but the one who pays for the externality is the farmer. So we're also talking about how to deal with that in a way that everyone pays and not one part pays. Again, we're also talking about how our ecosystems, in terms of the future, management services, are paid for by those that enjoy it. It could be in the local vicinity or worldwide. I spoke about the issue of co-creation of solutions as an investment area, not just talking about it. And again, we need to invest in speed. We need to invest in scale. We need to invest in urgency, as to mean now. And we need to invest in partnership. And I'll end by saying that really, we don't want a system, and if we can invest in it. I always think of that which made the system that we currently use very productive, very efficient, but has delivered poverty and opulence on both sides, farmers being on the poverty side and other actors on the opulent side, is a system we can borrow from, but we need to give it an antidote of not delivering poverty. In other words, you don't want a green system now that is environmentally sensitive, nutritionally sensitive, you name all the sensitivities talk about in development, and still delivers poverty to the farmer, because that is the DNA of value chains, regardless. So we need to be very careful to invest, ensure that that does not end up being the same. That is green economy, but maybe it's much more intensified poverty. I end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for that. I think I'm quite happy because I think he has really not held back. I think some of the things that he has mentioned are some of the things that we would really like to talk about. I remember a couple of years ago, the former president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Adesina, said the next millionaires are going to be farmers. And then when you hear him speak, you ask yourself that sounds like a paradox in a way. I mean, how is that going to happen? You have value chains that are delivering poverty. Farmers have been stuck in a certain economic and financial space for decades. The risk exposure is so much biased towards the farmers, and they are the ones that get the least in terms of the dividends from the value chain. So this design, as he's proudly put it, it's something that we need to look at. If you look at issues around research that he has mentioned, I guess it's a question of research for what, in a way? If it's not really benefiting farmers to the point where they become financially viable, then that kind of research, then you have to question it. I think the other thing that I would like to also mention here, and that he's touched upon it, is that some of the foresight analysis that we've been looking at is quite clear that the current characteristics of the farmer, the current African farmer, not because of anyone's doing, but because of time, they'll more than likely fade away or die away. I think already we are seeing the age average of those farmers. We're also seeing this big demographic bulge with the youth coming on. The youths are the ones that carry these cell phones. They're the ones into artificial intelligence and all these other things. They're really, they're an app generation. They really live off those apps. So if farming is going to take a new turn in Africa, then we have to leverage this demographic and youth bulge that we have been boasting about, and that's happening across the continent. So thank you very much, Mr. Shunga, for that. I would ask Professor Manette to come and give a response to that key note, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A. Professor, please, the stage is yours.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Elia Menet. Actually, my voice is suffering from something, but I'm here. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, so I'm Zelia Menet. I'm Mozambican. I'm the newly appointed board chair of CADESA. Don't ask me how they did appoint me, because I wasn't there when I was appointed. And then also now, please be patient with me. I don't know how much time I have.
10 minutes.
So when it's 2 minutes or 3, please. Yes? It's because I don't want to bore you. Because I was just this morning ambushed, kind of ambushed to do this. So I didn't know, but I'll do my best to be a discussant of what Professor was sharing with us. So I'll do my best. Please be patient and understanding. I believe they chose me for a reason, I don't know which one. So I'm just going to go straight to the issues Professor has raised, because I think they're very deep, very important question. I'm coming more from the research side. I'm coming more from being a professor at Edward Mondlane University. So, Professor, I don't know much about financing, but I know a little bit about the future. So I can talk about the farmer, I can talk about the future. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about financing the future farmers. But I'm not going to give another talk. I'm just going to go deep into commenting and adding to what he said. So for me, the issue of transformation is key, because what it is that we are doing, we are happy that we are doing the research, we are happy we are doing the development. Does it deliver what we want? Is it inclusive? Because it's all about transforming. But also as we transform, instead of delivering more poverty, we have to make sure that we include everybody. I know nowadays we talk about gender. For those who don't know me, I work with Mama Graça Machel the last 15 years as the CEO of her foundation, Mozambique. So one of the issues was the inclusiveness, the human rights, not only for women, but also for adolescent girls and for youth and for other people. So it's not only, for me, the real transformation is for us, all of us, be a movement, not only of men, of women, but also the youth, the adolescent girls, the handicapped, everybody is when I think the transformation will come also by engaging a lot of people, everybody, not living 50%, like in my country, 50% of our population is women. So I don't see us as Mozambique really developing fast just by using 48% of the whole population. So for me, it's also the inclusiveness of our transformation. Including farmers, of course, including farmers, including agro dealers, including the higher education institution, including the TVET institution that has a really role to play in terms of also providing and delivering qualification and skills at a lower level. It's not only, it's kind of a pyramid. It's like having this hotel. For this hotel, or I don't know how many hotels, you need only one engineer or one architect. But you need more bricklayers, you need people doing the electrician and whatever. So we need to have, yes, a lot of higher education institutions, but I was involved in the reform of the technical vocational education and to do the framework. We did all the exchange visit with Porter Training Authority, SAQA. So I think the capacity building, the research has to come every level. There is a research that we do in, now I'm at the DG of the National Agriculture Research Institution, like some of you, and then we have these high degrees. But we also need to work with the middle level technician and lower level because it's a pyramid, and then we need more in the base, and then we can include more in the base, few in the top, and then we can only have one president. We can only have one DG of agriculture research system, but we need more researchers at different levels. So transformation with inclusiveness, capacity building as a key issue because you touch on the human capital stock. The human capital stock, I also believe, I don't have to comment more on what you said, we need the new generation of farmers. So why are we not having a new generation farmer? In my view, is that we are not making agriculture sexy for them. Because I am not seeing this new Gen Z and whatever to just do muddy boots and just produce in the farm. But we have to look at the value chain. Where can we involve these kids? Okay, if they have to do production, it's important. But which technology? Are we doing precision agriculture? Are we using the equipment that is more modern to make the heavy lifting less heavy so that they use their brain and these machines and all this technology for them to do also the production? But also they can develop apps to do more marketing, to do more aggregation, to reduce the fragmentation, to do all these things. So in the value chain, maybe some people, they just want to add value and to do packaging and to do the codes to operate with the Spar and ShopRite and just go by there and add value, but pay the just price, not to the farmer to get very little and the middleman, the one getting rich. So that also the human capital, but the new generation, how do we attract these young men? I think we have to be creative there. These are some ideas I have given to you, but also the startups, what is the seed money that we give them? Some of the young people don't even have access to land. So if they don't have land, if they don't have credit, if they don't have seed money, they just have knowledge, how can they produce? They cannot produce. So we have to really, as we move, we are not going to have all the answers here. As we go home, as we sleep with our mattress or with our cushion, we have to continue reflecting. Why are we not being successful in bringing the young people and the young generation to agriculture and not deliver poverty? So, okay, also we always talk about potential. In Mozambique, we also talk, we have a lot of potential, but no one eats potential. Potential is not eatable. Potential has to be transformed with action that delivers something. not just being happy that you have potential, but us, Mozambique, we are importing, but we have potential. Potential is not good enough, and then it's not eatable. Farmer to resell and buy, you talk about aggregation. So as we look at the value chain, also there is space for our young generation, women, young adolescents, to do the aggregation. Actually, women and young people in Mozambique, they're very, very, very active in terms of aggregation, and also discussing prices and monitor prices, with also not only the SPARs and ShopRite, but also the informal market which dominates in Africa. You can also make money there. You can also train these people to do the work much better. Alignment between research and development. This is a big one, because I work in research for, I don't know, and I work in training. Also, we do research at university. We do teaching, but we do research also. And then also, it's always an issue, because the needs also keep changing. So every time you have mismatch, because there are the needs and there is the offer of a training program or research issue, and then the research can be relevant today, but not relevant tomorrow. So you have to keep, as we define our research agenda in our National Agricultural Research Institute, because the life is so dynamic, we have to be courageous enough in 2, 3 years, 5 years to sit down and in forums like these with farmers, with all stakeholders. And then now in our research institute, we didn't have a forum within the statute to do this. We have done that reform to have farmers sitting there, the seed companies sitting there, et cetera, because we do early generation seed production, and then we pass on those seeds for certified seed and others. So I think we have to be bold enough to define the research agenda, but be courageous enough to review as the dynamics changes, because the world is not static, it's moving very rapidly. So we have these nice documents, strategic plans, but we have to be able to look at this as just poles, like a guiding poles, but all the time to refine and adjust. Improve, he said, improve institution. I think one of the things, at least I can talk about Mozambique, I don't know in South Africa, but I feel from the interaction I have with South Africa and other countries, they have invested in more stronger institutions. It's not enough to get just researchers and individual people that are strong, but you need to strengthen the institution at all levels. Not only farmers' institution, but also the authorities at the lower level, from the district, from the province, from the nation, and then to get the dialogue also at those levels, so that the needs of the farmers, the youth, and everybody is included in the governance of all things, where the decision taken on the table, where the decision taken. And then again, every time the demands and the needs are changing, so you need to have the strong institution, but flexible enough to have these collective consultative places. One of the things I like very much is that this is one of the few meetings, maybe we have a good representation of youth, and we have a good representation of women, maybe not good enough for me, but but we need to have that representation, because if the person is not there, we are not going. I'm going to be 60 this year, so I'm not going to be able to defend or define a youth agenda in research, because I'm not a youth anymore. And then what I was doing when I was their age, it's outdated now. So unless we involve them, we have to involve them. So in Mozambique, we say in Portuguese, a minha agenda eu defino. Definição da minha you are not defining my agenda without me included there. Yeah, so in English, broken English, whatever. We need to invest in it together, you said, is the inclusiveness I said, and keep farmers not to delivered poverty. I can say something about that, because if someone is sitting somewhere, we are here in this hotel being fed, whatever, and then we are happy that the farmer is poor, it means we are all poor, because our country will be poor. Because to have a country that is moving forward, everyone has to at least get better off, bit by bit. So slowly but surely. And then that's the way the country can progress. That's the way the country can make money. Thank you very much. I hope my ambush made some sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think she started by saying she doesn't even know why she was appointed. But I think the last 15 minutes, I think, justifies that, because really she has dropped quite a lot of knowledge upon us on that. I think one of the things that I would like to just take from this is no one eats potential. I think, and that's true, because I think a lot of African countries will always talk about their potential. But yet we realize that potential, without it being exploited, it remains nothing. I think that's one. I think the other thing that I would like to also mention, as she was speaking, is that I remember the former AU Commissioner, Ms. Sako, she once said that the hand hoe needs to be put in a museum. Now that will require a huge shift in terms of how we do agriculture over the next 10 years. So thanks very much for that. I would like to, we're having, I think it's a Q&A session now. So I don't know if there will be some revolving mics. Okay. So I think I would like to open it up to a Q&A session, I think just for 5-6 minutes, and then we'll have the closing before we go for a break. So I think feel free, if you have anything burning, just switch on your mic, and then you can direct the question to the person you think should answer it. Otherwise, we can all tackle it together. I think we do not profess to have the monopoly of knowledge, but I think we're here as a group to help each other. So there's a hand there, please, and there's another one. Please, you can just use the mics on the tables.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Mr. Sunga, and also Professor Maria Zelia for sharing the knowledge and opening our minds to the challenges, and also proposing some solutions that we need to move towards. Over the past century, or even to date, there are two words that are commonly used, even as you are growing up. When you are going to get married, I was told by my aunt, make sure. And to school, make sure. My father said, make sure. And in here, and most meetings that we do hold, there is always, make sure. I don't understand it anymore, and I would like you to respond to say, what does it really mean when you say, it's make sure? Even in church, make sure, make sure, make sure. Please elaborate on make sure and issues of potential. Thank you.
Okay. I think we'll take, I think there was a hand there. There's also another hand. We'll take about 5 questions, and we'll hand it to you to answer the make sure question. Make sure. Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I am Shigdaf from Ethiopia. Thank you very much for your potential speaking. I learned a lot. And I wanted to just more elaborate how we unlock the potential. We have the potential for young, we have potential of land, we have potential of resource. Then how can we unlock them? From my experience in Ethiopia, let me justify some pointers. The first thing is that in the land, most of the land for agriculture may be covered by a smallholder farmer. The other lands are by the private, small scale to large scale. So the young graduated in agriculture, where they can involve? After having their graduation, they have no a chance to involve. And this needs a policy action, because most of the private farmers and the meat farmers, they have no agricultural educated experts. They should employ them. It should be a first criteria for the investment. They should include those potentials, young graduates, for this involvement. So for this, we need a policy support. May I kindly request, is there a policymaker here that can explain such type of issue? How can we include such type of breaking for unlocking the potential? The second issue is financing. For the young, after graduation, when they go to the bank says, what do you have? Do you have car? Do you have house? How can you give you the finance? That is the challenge. So for the developmental bankers, how can they support to the young minds, young potentials to engage on this agricultural production for food security? The third issue I wanted to raise is about technology. Still in most of African countries, as we all know, we are using all the technologies. As Professor Zela explained, we didn't make agriculture lovely. Rather than the youngest just go to the city, they do just some labor, easy work, but they didn't use their internal potential after graduation. So how can we unlock the potential? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think there's a question on this table, and then we'll come to you.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Barnabas Anamel. It's not really a question, as it is that I would like, as we hear, maybe we're in a room of the privileged people in terms of IQs. I think I'm the least here because I'm not a professor, I'm not even a daughter. But there's something that really bothers me a lot. Actually, I like money. I like to talk about money all the time. I heard that there's a need for different finance instruments. One of the bottlenecks that we have, I'm not going to talk about Mozambique, where I'm coming from, but I'm going to talk about the industry as agriculture. Because for me, when I see agriculture, I see oil and gas, I see infrastructure. I compare with all of them because it is an industry. The only problem is in agriculture, we treat it differently. Why, if we have the courage from whoever brings the funding to our countries, I'm not talking all about on behalf of Mozambique, we say, let's invest deeply as we invest in oil and gas, in minerals, where you can afford to lose millions and millions of dollars, but to have a specific result, which is to boost the industry. So the question is on the, not question or comment, on different kinds of instruments to finance agriculture. Let's not think about finance CD to the poor smallholder. Let's talk about losing hundreds of millions of dollars on research. Let's talk about losing billions of dollars, people failing. And then we're going to have the so-called new millionaires and billionaires agriculture. Because all other industries do the same. Why can't we do that? We want to put $10,000, $100,000 $1 million. No, let's put hundreds and billions. Then you'll see something change. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I think this is going to be the last question for this round. Oh, you also want to ask? Okay, we'll start with him and then finish with you. And then we'll take some more questions. I think there are some at the back, and then we'll close the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing very good information with us. I want to read what you said from the beginning when you said we have been quite nice to the problem that we have in Africa, and it's time for us to be dirty. And I think we need to be really dirty, even in the questions that we are asking. I think our biggest problem is that we are not appreciating that we exist within a global system. And our role and contribution has been defined in that system. And the CEO from the farmers said it quite well to say, this system is delivering poverty. There is something wrong with it. And I guess it's because of our view in this global context that we're not viewing things from our point of view. We are viewing things from somebody's point of view. And it's about time that we start thinking about looking at things from our own context. And the other deep-rooted issue is that I don't think we value lives enough. That is why we will have early childhood mortality with numbers that are astronomical, and it's still fine. So I think we should define our perspective in terms of the view. And then what is the solution? I think the solution has been shared to say we have very weak institutions. Our farmer organizations, they are not strong enough. And where you find a situation where there are strong farmer organizations, there is a lot of progress, because they define things according to their own perspective, what they benefit out of the system. And that goes for all institutions that we have. When you have weak institutions, it doesn't work, because you will have us sitting here, and those people that are part of these subsystems that we're talking about are not here, and they don't have a strong voice. So for me, we need to strengthen our institutions, and we have to pay for it. We have to find a way of paying for it, because if you don't pay for it, it's not your agenda. It's somebody's agenda. So we need to think about different approach to working with the global community so that we are not fodder, but we are contributing because we have a lot to offer.
Thank you for that. And last.
Thanks,
but not least.
facilitator. My name is Tobias Takawarasha, agriculture advisor. I just want a small question to pose to the two distinguished speakers on the issue of potential. What exactly is potential? Can they unpack and elaborate on what potential is? It might turn out that what we call potential might be non-existent. I just want to give an example. When I was growing up, I loved football to the extent that people say this guy has potential to be a great football player. But up to now, the closest I've got to being a football player is my TV screen. So I would love to know what really is the potential, what we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You know, you still have potential. There is still time, sir. I've tried to capture some of these questions and I'll direct them appropriately. I think maybe, Professor, maybe you can handle all the ones on potential, and then also the question on make sure as well. I think that was a difficult one, so I think, Professor, you can handle that one. I think, Mr. Shunga, I think all the ones related to farmers, value for life, the different financing instruments, technology, the value chains, and others, I think maybe you can also handle that particular bunch. So we will not answer them one by one. I think we'll just try to lump everything together. So over to you, Professor, and then, you should go first, sir. You can use this.
I think I owe it to the professor to thank her for titling me professor. I just want to declare that I'm not a professor. Maybe if I sound like one, maybe I'm one, but definitely I'm not a qualified professor. And some of the questions that were being asked, I'll call it professorial, that I'm not sure I'll be able to answer them, but I'll try to do that. But before I go to this, I just want to make two quick points that I think are relevant to this meeting. Because I believe that there are two things that can bring the transformation that we want. Only two, if we work on them. One of them is policy. It's not because it's a FANAPAN meeting that I'm saying policy. It is because it can, by just engineering policy, you can actually have the change you want at speed and scale and at the lowest cost. And there are many ways that you can do that, fiscal or monetary or otherwise. So tweaking or engineering policy, and I really want to call researchers to look at policy engineering as one of the things that can actually change the many lives of many people at scale and at speed and the lowest cost. The same goes for digital technology. If I was to choose between a road that goes to farms out there in far-flung areas and digital technology, I will go for digital technology. Because the moment people recognize their potential, if I have to talk about potential, through what they see, what they hear, what they experience, it changes people's lives. We have seen how digital technology has revolutionized social lives, has changed. And the same can happen to agriculture. If people begin to benchmark themselves, begin to understand, seeing is believing. A lot of us may not be farmers, but I farm farmers organizations, so I'm a farmer in that sense. I see and I believe, and that's where sometimes you can convert potential into reality. I'm sorry about Tagawarasha's potential, that did not realize. But I think it comes with you becoming conscious of it, because potential can be spoken by us. But the one that maybe are thinking that they understand the potential might be oblivious to the existence of potential. So consciousness is important for you to realize that you have potential. And then you move from unconscious awareness of its existence to more conscious awareness of its existence. The moment you are consciously aware, you are likely going to be able to do something about it. So I've spoken about policy and digitalization because I'm speaking more to FANAPAN about what can we do to hasten change at scale. I wasn't sure about make sure what it meant. But again, I'm thinking that it is really, we have to make sure ourselves than others telling us to make sure. I'm not sure that I'm answering it correctly, but that's my understanding. I could not get the what was hidden in that make sure. One way was that people are talking to you to make sure. It's not you yourself assuring yourself that what I'm going to do, I've got the confidence to go and do it. Maybe an elaboration of what make sure meant, much more decoded, might be able to try and answer that. But I think that sometimes we need to discover things ourselves, and I think the advent of the democratization of information, of knowledge and all that might be part of the bedding that is required. Again, I always say farmers are also people. Sometimes we talk to them as if they were not people. So they are an integrated human being that requires an integrated solution. And speaking to Mozambique, I think, and also to Professor, I think we are being too politically correct to say everyone who grows a crop is a farmer. We are lumping gardeners, everyone, and just say call them farmers, more for our political expediency. Then we are going to hit them with farming solutions when they are not farmers. But because it's very difficult, and I might be misquoted here that I'm saying people are not farmers. I hope it won't go out there saying that because I represent them. But the truth of the matter is they are highly differentiated. They are segregated. Some farm to eat. Others produce a surplus by accident, not by design. Then there are those that intentionally produce, if I have to broadly classify them. So if you hit the one who farms to eat with a commercial credit, you're condemning that person to death. It's not their fault, it's your fault who is providing that. So it has to be horses for courses somehow for it to work. And if you are going to give a subsidy for those that actually intentionally, purposefully go for profit, then you're hitting them with. So if we don't differentiate and segregate, unfortunately, we are going to use the lowest common denominator. That's how we are going to calibrate it, so that it covers everyone. Then we get zero. I question agricultural statistics because we are adding what gardeners are saying, everything. Then we get our productivity rate is embarrassingly low. We're adding the wrong things. I challenge researchers that maybe look at how you change, how you measure productivity, because we're using gardeners and farmers and everyone all mashed up together. Do I still have time? No, I don't think so. No, I think institutions, in the same way that we are investing public resources in research, I think it's important also to invest in institutions. Not only farmers' organizations, but institutions that also look at governance of the value chains, governance of the whole system. And I think I end here. I have not attempted to answer any of them, but I hope I said something useful. Thank you.
Well, I will continue saying Professor Sunga, because what he's saying is professoral, right? It's not, it doesn't make you professor just because you have a PhD, and like my father, he just did the 7th grade or 8th grade, but I'm here because of him, because he's really a PhD of life. So you are professor. To me, I don't know to them, but for me, what you are saying is professorial. Yeah. So, Florence, I don't know about the make sure. For those who don't know me, I just have reconnected with Florence yesterday. After 20 years not seeing her, we did Cornell together, PhD from 2001 to 2005. And I don't know, for whatever reason, she's here in South Africa, I'm in Mozambique. I haven't seen her physically. So, Auntie Flo, I don't know to make sure, but I think Professor Sunga has tried to answer. And then again, I believe that there are always people telling us to make sure, but you have to internalize what it is that you want to make sure. So it comes from inside to outside. People can give you guidance, but it only is useful if you follow the guidance or it makes sense to you. So I think it's just the agenda. And then also the potential, and to make sure depends on the investment. Yeah, you have a potential to be a footballer, But if your parents or yourself, you don't find a scholarship to go a football academy, soccer academy, rugby academy, whatever, they invest in you to be a tennis player. You just don't, you have a potential to be a tennis player. You will not become a tennis player unless your parent or yourself get opportunity to be trained from younger and then you are consistent, because you can even be lost in the process. So I think the make sure and the potential, it goes with Zandamela was saying, we have to invest. We have to invest in research. Those that are progressing in agriculture, at least that I see, even Vietnam and other China and whatever, I'm not going to talk about the US because I don't want to talk some other politically not correct things. But they invested. They were at the same level as our countries when we became independent, and they invested in research, in training. Just look how many Chinese, how many Vietnamese, how many are in every university in the so-called first world. They invest. So you invest as any industry. Oil and gas, boom, they put like $1 billion to just do exploratory, whether this reserve of gas is good enough to explore. So agriculture, we are not doing that. So I think I should agree with you. And then these are also answer the how do we unlock potential. I think we also have to realize it's a complex. Real problems are complex. They are not easy problems. I mean, if they were easy problems, they wouldn't need us with experience, PhD, a very experienced leader, Sunga, CEO of Sakao, because these are the level of complexity that we need to engage our minds, because it's not easy. You can look at those places, for instance, that I know in Mozambique, that we invested a lot, and the production is high, and the people are producing more. Manica, Cap Delgado, Nampula, they produce a lot, they have good rains, etc. But it's where stunting is higher. So you produce a lot, but they sell what is more nutritious, and then they eat very poor diet. So it's not only producing and selling and making money. So they sell what can make money. They sell the chicken and the eggs and the orange fresh sweet potato, etc., etc. And then they eat their ugali with a little bit of vegetable. So the thing is, it's complex. It's not a thing that we need all of us. We need to engage all of us and sit and how they say, how do you eat an elephant? What is the answer? You start with the first bite. Is how you eat an elephant, bite by bite. So that's, I think, the approach. Sometimes I have 5 years because I'm a minister. I only have 5 years, and then I want to solve all this complexity in 5 years. Maybe we have to be strategic. And then I have to agree with him in terms of those two areas. But those two areas, I would add to Professor Sunga, the area of training, skills, and then also because skills are not only obtained in universities and technical vocational education, but there are people who learn skills by doing. So you have to have a system to recognize skills that are acquired informally and formalizing them in terms of certification. So I think skills for me is key because I've been there in higher education, technical vocation, and then also when I was establishing the high-level polytechnic in Manica, we invested in an incubator, business incubator, and seed money, and then the student didn't defend thesis, they defended the business plan in front of the financial institution that would fund their business plan instead of just defending a thesis, but they were defending something. And then from that experience, we have new generation farmers that they have knowledge and whatever. So I'm not going to be long because the issues are complex. I don't have an answer. I'm just sharing the little that I know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. We have really run out of time, and I know there are quite a lot of questions as hands are still up, but I think I have to use the powers that have been given to me as moderator, that I would have to decline all those nice hands. I think maybe we can engage bilaterally over a cup of tea. I would like to call Dr. Dumisani to close this session. And then I think we should be able to break after that. Dr. Dumisani, please.
Good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me? You know, closing a very vibrant session is a bit difficult. But I think the presenters have talked about the complexity of the topic, which is financing the future and the need for aligning the investment with the agri-food systems transformation goals. I think earlier on we informed about the Kampala Declaration and its relationship with the CAADP, right? I think when we started, we were talking about the transition from CAADP to Kampala. And I think we were also told that we are in a transition now to implement the Kampala Declaration. And during CAADP, we were talking about 10% investment in agriculture for every nation, minimum. But I don't know how many countries were able to do that. Meaning that this is a mammoth task because of the need to have a whole of government approach. I think Mr. Sunga talked about the rural farmer who has got poor infrastructure, who has got a whole array of challenges for that need to be addressed for agri-transformation to occur. So this calls for a whole of government approach in terms of the investment model, multi-stakeholder as well, meaning that the farmers' organizations, the farmers themselves, the governance structures at sub-national and national levels have to be involved in coming up with investment models that will be ideal to transform the agriculture sector. So to cut a long story short, I would like to agree with Mr. Sunga, who talked about the need for funding from many levels, right? He talked about philanthropy, right? We have the Mastercard, is it Mastercard Foundation, Rotary Foundation? How do we leverage from these philanthropic initiatives to align with the government initiatives? So it is critical that whatever development initiatives are happening, they have to be aligned with government so that we have a common approach and we can account for the agri-food systems transformation. Then the issue of public-private partnerships. It also calls for alignment. The private sector should align with the government programs for agri-food systems transformation to occur. If it is piecemeal, then we will not achieve. So there is a need for alignment. This alignment implies that at the planning level, we are working together with the private sector to chart the way forward in terms of mobilization of resources, in terms of the plan itself, the strategic plan,
What are the deliverables? Are we monitoring them? And at what intervals? So that we are able to account for the development when it occurs. The issue of infrastructure, it's not only the Agricultural Ministry that is responsible for that. It's cross-cutting. You find that we have the Ministry of Transport, we have the Ministry of Local Government. They also have to appreciate their contribution in terms of agri-food systems transformation. The farmer in a remote area needs to carry his produce to the market. So if the bridge is not functioning, then the development is not going to occur. So it means these agri-food systems goals have to be cross-cutting. There have to be a certain level of understanding across the government and the devolution to the sub-national level so that we are able to achieve that. Then, of course, investments. When you talk about investment, normally it's money, right? Yeah, you know, we've talked about human capital investment, technological development. Those are all investments that are critical for this. So it means that we have to make sure that we have policies that promote technological development. I think the professors were talking about digitization, development of apps to entice the youth. So that inclusivity for the youth, for the women, for the handicapped needs to be done so that we are looking at the future. I think somebody talked about sell by date, right? So when something has expired, it means you throw it away. So it calls for regeneration. Let's have the youth. How do we find them? Maybe we need now to think about a future without these farmers, with reduced labor, where we are using the Internet of Things, the remote sensing, to reduce labor and to make our agriculture more precise. So we need to have those policies that are futuristic so that we are able to leverage on technological developments. On the money side, I think government has to look at treasury bills to finance the infrastructure development. And it has to give incentives for investors, such as tax breaks and no tax on investment and capital gains, so that we attract the private sector investment. And also to look at insurance, so that we have prescribed asset status for insurance, so that the insurance companies can use their money, can invest their money for agri-food system transit. These days we are talking about carbon credits. How can the communities benefit from the carbon credits at the community level? What is this carbon sequestration as a result of adoption of green agriculture? How do we transform this so that the communities can fund themselves also? Because one of the issues is that farmers don't have collateral, right? So how do we empower them to get collateral? So these are issues that need to be looked at. Whether indexed insurance, can we compensate the farmers for poor seasons so that they can come back next season? Because of climate change, it might be a poor season, drought, flooding. But if the farmer is insured, that farmer can come back on board. So we need to have these deliberate policies. And then the issue of mobilization of funds. It should not be only government. I think the private sector has to come in. We need to have some fund where farmers can draw down, where the youth can draw down, where the women can draw down to develop the applications that we think that are futuristic. Foreign direct investment, we need it. We need it. Can we rely on the North only? Maybe we also need to strengthen South-South cooperation. Can we encourage our partners in the South to come and invest here? Can we leverage on our natural resources and invest them into agri-food systems transformation? Diaspora remittances. Are we encouraging diaspora to invest in agri-food systems? Let's create some policies that will allow the diasporans to contribute. Of course, I know that some are not allowed now after the recent elections, are not allowed to remit funding to their home countries, but we can evolve something like that. So we have to onboard the private sector in all strategic initiatives that are done by the government. Then we need to have specific financial instruments that will allow investments in research and development in the public sector so as to promote the innovation that will be beneficial to our farmers. Devolution is also critical. We need the rural councils to be involved in that. So colleagues, this topic has been very interesting, and I'm pleased to sit down now. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you very much for that. I think we can now take a break, and then we'll be able to get into the seventh session after this. So.
Thank you, colleagues. That was an interesting session indeed. So we are now going to go to tea break, which will be only 10 minutes, considering that we are quite behind schedule today. So we should be back here by 11:15. Our tea break is only 10 minutes. Do continue the conversations. If you have any questions, you're free to approach any of the speakers and the panelists so that you can be able to get your answers. So we may kindly go inside and have... Oh, yes, photo for the professors. Thank you.